As you guys know, I am a tour guide, so, what better thing to do on a cold Saturday night in a basement in the Lower East Side than give you a tour, baby. It's tour time with Tom.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah, baby. Look at that. I used to walk around with people, point at stuff. Yeah, real thespian, and we're all going to die one day. Dabbing rad. All right. So I figured today we could do a little bit of a special occasion since, it's the holiday season coming up. I thought I'd give you guys a little tour today and a little lecture, if you will, on the origins of our idea of the holidays and the Christmas holiday here in the United States, which kind of was invented here in New York. I don't know if you guys knew that. So let's get started, baby. Wow, we got so much to cover. All right, so here we go. I'm going to start here. First of all, an important thing to keep in mind is that Christmas is pretty much a mashup, right? It's like, it's a mashup of different holidays, really. So one is St. Nick, the Feast of St. Nicholas. You guys ever heard of it? Huh? St. Nicholas would go to places like the Netherlands, and he would leave little things in people's little clogs and stockings. That's where it came from. I don't know if you guys knew this, but he was assisted by his handy assistant, Black Pete. That's true. And if you're thinking, wow, that's really politically incorrect, that's crazy they used to do that. They still do that. You want to see a celebration in the Netherlands? Check it out. That's the Netherlands, like 5 years ago. So if you think it's bad here, no, that's crazy. There's been a push to kind of get rid of this, and they've actually made, in the last few years, they replaced Black Pete with Sooty Pete, like he came down the chimney. Yeah, how about that? Good save, guys. So now instead of people in blackface, you have people with smoke and stuff on their face walking around. They really wanted to hold on to that. So there you go. There's one part of it. You have the Feast of St. Nicholas. The other one is known as Saturnalia. So this originated with the Romans, right? And this was actually a celebration of basically the winter solstice, the days leading up to it. You had some dead time. The harvest was in, all this stuff. So you know what? People partied. They partied, so this was kind of a thing that they did in the Roman times, and it spread to the rest of the Roman kingdom or whatever, the empire, right? So they did a lot of things. This is Constantine. So Constantine actually tried to get rid of a lot of the bacchanal aspect of it because he was the Christian guy, right? He wanted to be Mr. Christian. But it's because of people like him that today the date of Christmas is set where it is, even though that isn't where he was born. So the date is one of the things that we still have today, and also the tradition of sacrificing gladiators. I don't know if you guys have done that. If you go to Bushwick, they do that every Christmas. But yeah, that's one of the things they actually used to do. So this is the other one. So you had Saturnalia and the Feast of St. Nick. We're going to get into this. But here's the question. How do we mix them? Where are they going to mix? Where is this going to come together? Where do we get Christmas? Well, there just happened to be this one colony in the New World, right, with people from all over Europe coming and mixing and hanging out, and people from all over the world coming into the harbor at all times. New Amsterdam, baby. Yeah. That's right, New Amsterdam is a pretty cool place. Now, what would give the impetus to just cram them all together and create a new holiday? Well, that was the American Revolution, the feast of the American Revolution. Yeah, remember this guy? So the American Revolution, after the American Revolution, people in the United States, the new United States, didn't want to have anything to do with Britain. Right? So they actually took a lot of what they celebrated as Christmas in Britain and just mashed it up into what is St. Nick to kind of make a new thing, right? Remember, after the Revolution, they actually got rid of King's College and turned it into Columbia University, right? They did a lot of these things to kind of rid themselves of the English stain. Sorry, UK guys. They're like, wow, I feel attacked. So yeah, they did things like that. They turned King's College into Columbia. They stopped dressing as Mr. Bean for Halloween, stuff like that. So this is where it kind of starts to happen, right? Now, it had to get put out into the world, into the ether. So this is the job of artists. Artists do this, right? One of the big artists was this guy, Washington Irving. You guys ever heard of him? Huh? Yeah, he wrote The Headless Horseman. Ooh, he wrote Rip Van Winkle. Oh, the story of a guy who just passes out for decades and wakes up to a whole new world, right? Sounds like me in my 20s, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah, it was cool. I partied. There's me right there. He's a pretty cool guy. Anyways, he actually made a lot of different books that included Christmas, or this modern idea of Christmas. He started in this book, The Knickerbocker's History of New York. I don't know if you guys have heard the word Knickerbocker. It actually refers to anyone who is a descendant of the original Dutch families of New York, right? And in this book, he talks about family coming together, St. Nicholas coming over the chimneys and all this stuff. So he starts kind of hinting at it there. He also hints at it in the book, the sketchbook of Geoffrey Crayon. You guys know that old ditty? You guys were probably reading that on the way here, huh? He's got 4 essays in there where he talks about Christmas and he lays it all out. And remember, this is the first major author of the United States history, so a lot of people read the guy, including this guy. This guy is Clement Clark Moore. You guys ever heard of him? If you know this neighborhood Chelsea, it was his family that kind of laid the neighborhood of Chelsea out, gave it its name, which is actually named after a hospital in London. Foggy London town, huh? You guys? All right, great. Hey, he names it Chelsea. This is his son, Clement Clark Moore. And Clement Clark Moore, actually, the house is still there. His house is still there, 444 West 22nd, I believe. Just sold it for $8.5 million in 2017. He was rich, obviously. And what do rich people do when they don't have anything to do? They write sappy poems all the time. And that's what he did. He wrote one you might have heard of. This is from St. Nicholas, 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. 1823, he writes, "'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse." Not that there would be anything wrong if there was a mouse there, right? You guys have mice too, right? All right, let's keep it moving. Here we go. Dickens. We got Dickens as the next one. Dickens was a big fan of Washington Irving, huh? I don't know if you guys have heard of Charles Dickens. He wrote a classic, something that is completely identified with the holiday. You guys know the story, the Da Vinci Code. Yeah, that's right, he wrote the Da Vinci Code. No, he didn't. He actually wrote this other book called The Christmas Carol, huh? You guys ever heard of it? It's a good one, but this was kind of like, hey, baby, here it is. This is Christmas. This is in 1843. He wrote this book. He was just basically laying it out. You know, all of the cheer, the goodwill. And remember, Dickens was like a real progressive guy. He was trying to change the world, man. So he snuck some stuff into that where he was trying to make things better for everybody. And it's a good. So by the way, Dickens, another important thing to keep in mind about Dickens is, even though he was progressive, let's be honest, man. If he was alive today, that freak would have been the first in line at Black Friday. Let's be honest. There you go. Yeah, come on, he's right there. That's not, don't try to play better than us. All right, let's keep it moving. Here we go. All right. Another example, this guy, Thomas Nast, very important name, German guy. This guy drew cartoons. That was very important in a time, now remember, in the mid-1800s, all that stuff, a lot of people came here not even knowing how to read. Remember all the people who came from the famine, depressed Ireland, all these things. So cartoons were very important. This guy, he was a kind of racist too, unfortunately. He can't be perfect. He's drawing Irish people. That's his opinion of Irish people. They put this stuff in the magazines back then. Isn't that nuts? Anyways, this is an Irish guy. He was the guy who actually, basically, I'll show you the pictures of Santa, but this was important back then. These were like memes. Think of how important memes are today. But imagine there only being like 5 different people making memes. Don't pretend like you don't know what I'm talking about. You guys know who this person is, right? You guys know who he is. Don't try to pretend like you're better than me. Fun fact, that guy, that little kid today, Barron Trump. I don't know if you guys knew that. Yeah. All right, let's keep it moving. Now, so this guy here, this is what he drew. This is what he drew. This is and he drew it 33 times. He hammered this home, baby. He hammered home the fat, jolly, Santa, all that stuff, and he even had him delivering gifts to the Union Army. Look at that. That's a real collab, huh? That's a real nice collab there. So yeah. Anyways, so we're gonna keep this moving. We're gonna segue now because we covered the art. That's pretty good. That's pretty good graphics, man. Come on, I did that this morning. Thank you. Art. So we're segueing into the commercial, baby, because this is an important thing. We talked about the religious traditions, now we talked about art, now we're going into commercial because this is really what makes the world go round, baby. Now, first up, Macy's. Macy's in the 1870s started this thing of making windows, huh? You guys know the window displays that are so famous? They started even back then. At first, they just did it for whatever reason. In fact, one of the first window displays they did was for, that's right, Uncle Tom's Cabin. Nothing makes you want to buy a windbreaker. Like reminded of Uncle Tom's Cabin. Let's just say they stopped doing that after that year, but that was one of the things they did. They eventually segued into Christmas, and then it continued on. Now, it's interesting enough, you guys are thinking, like, who cares? They're just window displays. It was a big deal. This guy here is named L. Frank Baum. Okay, you guys know the name? Yeah, he's a very famous author. He wrote Wizard of Oz. He wrote The Wizard of Oz, that's right. He also had a magazine called Snow Window that was about only window displays that they released every month. Yeah. If there was any doubt that after Wizard of Oz that this guy was a stoner, that was totally... Are you kidding me? This guy's getting baked, baby. Look at that. Huh? All right, so it was important. Now, interesting enough, Macy's also debuted the parade. In the 1920s, they started the parade. In 1924, they actually started the parade as a way to celebrate their expansion of their store to cover the entire block. You guys know that it goes from 7th all the way to 6th. It expanded, and they threw this parade as a way to celebrate in 1924, which, you know, I think if you guys are in real estate, any of you developers, take note, you know? If you're going to go into a freaking neighborhood and just demolish everything, the least you could do is put a bouncy castle. Come on. These guys are at least putting parade through, huh? So in 1924, they started this parade. Interestingly enough, they started out with animals. They started out with real live animals. And they stopped doing that after 3 years because they found that real life animals, just like real New Yorkers, can't stand being around tourists. So they had to go to actual balloons, huh? And this guy came in. His name's Tony Sarg. This guy invented the balloon thing, right? He started making these balloons. It's pretty cool. Look at that. Very great. In fact, the first balloon was this, Felix the Cat. Isn't that cool? 1927. And interestingly enough, you know this? They actually cut the balloons at the end and let them just fly away. That was something they did. Isn't that crazy? And if you caught the balloon, you could bring it and get a gift certificate to Macy's. Isn't that nuts? Yeah, I mean, it obviously was a huge problem, and a plane almost crashed because of it, which is terrible, man. Can you imagine that? Like, you're about to die, the last thing you see is olive oil, you know? And it's not even, and it's not even like a, like actual balloon. It's like that. It's not even one of these. All right, so another thing, talking about commerce, radio, baby. Radio was a real important thing. We got radio coming up in the 1930s, right? So with radio, you start pumping out advertisements. You start getting you start co-opting these symbols that have been worked on for so long. One of them, Coca-Cola. They took the Santa Claus, right? And you had it even on the other side, like nonprofits and things as well. Salvation Army, huh? Salvation Army started... That's the saddest looking Santa I've ever seen in my life. I really hope that guy got some, that looks like elder abuse, frankly. I don't know what the hell he's even doing that. But yeah, anyways, this is, they started co-opting these symbols. Okay, so then you can start having music come out, right? Over the radio, these are important things, right? You guys know who this is? This is Bing Crosby. Bing Crosby sang the famous song. You guys know the song, White Christmas, huh? I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, just like the ones I used to know. Thank you very much. All right, please, we got to get through this. No, stop. Thank you. I appreciate it. I got to get thank you so much. Anyways, he sang the song White Christmas, crazy title. It sounds like, like just a racist celebration of the holiday, White Christmas. I wonder what that would look like. Ah! All right, let's keep it moving. All right, another thing. You got the tree, baby. Rockefeller Center, they do this tree. You know what? It actually started in 1931 when they were building the place. They built the tree. They put it up to kind of keep everyone's morale up because it was during the Great Depression. Pretty cool. And in fact, that wasn't very popular back then. Putting trees up publicly wasn't only a new thing. 1912 was the first one in Madison Square, so that was still a new thing. Then you had radio, City Music Hall, the Christmas Spectacular, Roxy, Samuel Roxy Rothafel. This guy is the one who started it, and he's the one who got the Rockettes, right? They were actually called the Roxyettes initially because of this guy, and they named them the Rockettes, huh? Oh, you guys are learning stuff. Oh, take notes, huh? So you can impress your friends. Okay, here we go. Now, funny story, they used to actually use candles on trees. Yeah, I'm sure you guys can do the math there. Yeah, they used candles on trees, and it killed more people than heart disease in the United States. But guess who came in and swept in for the win is good old Thomas Edison. Yeah. He designed the bulb for the lights, and now you know every time you have your dad getting caught and getting mad at your mom, you can think of Thomas Edison, you know? Look at that. I think that's someone's dad. All right, let's keep moving. Also, interesting fact, little gifts and things come out of Christmas as well. This is a little fun fact. The Charging Bull of Wall Street, that was a Christmas gift. Yes, from Arturo de Modica. He made it to commemorate the bouncing back of the stock exchange from Black Monday in 1987. He gifted it in 1989, dropped it under the tree in front of the stock exchange with no note, just a bow around its neck. They sent it to be thrown away in Queens, but everyone in New York found out about it. They're like, we want to see it. Bring it over. So they put it where it is today, and it's been there ever since. Look at that. This is what people are saying, bah humbug, get that thing out of here, but they actually fought and kept it there. Isn't that nuts? It was a gift. It was a gift. And today you can go there and see people taking pictures. And look, let's be honest. If there's one thing as universal as holiday cheer, it's thinking that balls are funny. Look at that. And people from all over the world unite around touching that bull's balls. Huh? Isn't that a beautiful thing? So anyways, all of this stuff, it just goes to show, we talked a little bit about Rockefeller Center, but I think Rockefeller Center is a good example of how it all kind of comes together. Because right there at Rockefeller Center, you can see the religious by just walking into St. Patrick's Cathedral. You can see the artistic and the traditions of, you know, the writers and authors by just walking around the trees and all the decorations. And you can see the commercial aspect of it by paying $25 for a turkey sandwich. Isn't that a beautiful thing? You can experience the whole gamut right there. Isn't that nice? But yeah, guys, that's the Christmas story, huh? We went through it. We really went through it, man. We really went through it. So we got one comedian left, guys, and I'm going to bring him up.